This morning, U.S. stock futures are pointing up following talk from the Trump administration of potential exemptions for some electronics from China. And Asian stocks are seeing a jump as well. In Tokyo, as you see right here, the Nikkei closed up almost 400 points. And in Hong Kong, the Hang Seng Index gained more than 500. But despite a customs bulletin on Friday saying electronics from China would catch a break, the president is saying that will be short-lived.
You have to have a certain flexibility, and we're doing really well, and financially our country is going to be stronger than it's ever been. We were taken advantage of and ripped off by every country all over the world, almost, just about. They laughed at us. We were run by foolish people, and they took advantage of our country, and we're just not going to let that happen anymore.
CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand joins us live from the White House this Monday with the latest on the tariffs. Natalie, good morning to you. So we've got some mixed messaging going on this tariff exemption for electronics from China. So what exactly is the policy?
Yeah, good morning, Errol. Well, the administration is saying that those high-tech items are still subject to that earlier 20% fentanyl-related tariff imposed on China. But for now, they are exempt from the reciprocal tariffs. But numerous administration officials on the Sunday shows making it clear that they will likely face a separate tariff down the road, a national security-related tariff, as the U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer told CBS News' Face the Nation and Margaret Brennan on Sunday that there's going to be a study launched to try to examine semiconductors specifically, the same bucket as pharmaceuticals when you're talking about critical sectors that the administration would like to bring more manufacturing back to the United States so the U.S. is not as dependent on supply chains from out of the country. So administration officials saying despite that late Friday notice regarding exemptions for things like smartphones, tablets, high-tech items, that there will be a study, investigation, and then eventually a tariff on these items. The president, though, as you heard in those comments, traveling back to the White House, said there has to be some flexibility, that they're talking to companies as well. When asked about a specific rate for those items, he said that more will be announced in the near future.
And Natalie, we know that you continue to speak to people impacted by all of this, including some small business owners. What are they telling you?
Yeah, I spoke to a small business owner from Texas late last night. His company imports lighting equipment that goes on things like RVs, trailers, agriculture equipment. And his family business actually started a joint venture with a Chinese family back in the 90s. The Chinese company manufactures that lighting equipment. He imports it to the United States, and then it goes on those trucks and things like that. He says that a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, like the one in place currently, would just simply put him out of business. He's deeply worried. He doesn't know how long this is going to go. I asked if he has a message to the administration, especially in light of that notice about exemptions for those other goods we were talking about. Here's what he had to say.
They've put companies like Apple and Samsung, big consumer electronics manufacturers, given them an exemption when those are the ones who have the power and the money to make big changes. But small businesses like mine are marginalized and left to bear the burden of this and to see our families suffer.
That was Ralph Bradley there. He says he's hoping for potential exemptions for small businesses and also wondering, as many people are, when are President Trump and Chinese President Xi finally going to talk about this and try to reach some sort of trade deal. Yeah,
and there are so many stories like that. Natalie Brand at the White House, thank you. Let's bring in the deputy editor for Business Insider now, Akin Oyedele. Good morning to you. You know, it's interesting hearing from one business owner who's smaller saying, hey, the bigger guys are getting more help. But how are tech companies in general navigating this real uncertainty?
Thanks for having me, Errol. Well, it's been a turbulent couple of weeks for sure. They, like the rest of the market, have been thrown for a loop, by the announcements from the White House in terms of will they, won't they, who's exempted, who's not, what's exempted, what's not. On all of the so-called Magnificent Seven stocks, which are all big tech stocks in Tesla, are lower year to date, which tells you the sentiment on Wall Street about these companies and their earnings going forward. So it's been a rough ride. We know that a lot of business leaders have been speaking out about the potential impact that these tariffs would have on their businesses, and they are due to report earnings in the next couple of weeks. So we're going to hear a lot more color on that. And that is perhaps why you saw some of the announcements over the weekend with some of the delays specifically targeting tech.
Yeah, and we saw at Donald Trump's inauguration so many of the most wealthy tech CEOs getting really a front row seat, being part of the team watching Trump get sworn in for a second time. So they likely have a line to the White House. But how do you think the market is likely to react when it opens here in the U.S. in just over 2 hours to this 90-day pause in general on tariffs? Will we see more volatility? What's your prediction?
Well, I wish I could tell you exactly what would happen. That would be very helpful for all of your viewers. But we're likely to see more volatility in the day and couple of days ahead, I think, because this is far from over. We still have a situation where consumer confidence is down, business confidence is down, and a lot of the news sort of flow is still very much volatile. So everyone's sort of on standby for the next blue sky post that throws all of this, into a tailspin. So I think expect volatility, but we're green in terms of the stock futures, and so looking likely to open higher today, which for investors who are in the market, that's a good thing.
Yeah, on the day at least. Tomorrow is a whole nother story. Akin Oyedele, thanks so much for joining us from New Jersey.
Hey.
All right, we've got some fresh new CBS News polling for you, and it shows more Americans are concerned now about the impact of tariffs compared to a month ago. Take a look at this. 51% of Americans say they like the president's goals, but fewer are fans of his approach. CBS News Elections and Surveys Executive Director Anthony Salvanto brings us more on the economic sentiment and partisan divide.
When Americans are judging the impact of Donald Trump's trade and tariff policies, a lot of it seems to come down to what they think the goals are and their time horizon. Here's what I mean. Here's the immediate impact that a lot of Americans think on prices. 3/4, at least in the short term, think that's going to lead to higher prices. Americans are sensitive to that. They've been telling us for years that inflation, that prices are their top economic concern. Even in the long term, a lot of people think that it's going to raise prices. But take a look at the way in which people think it affects them. You see a movement in the number of people who say they think Donald Trump's policies are making them financially worse off. Now, what's also key about this isn't just the movement. It's the fact that at the start of the president's term, we saw so many more people thinking that his policies would make them financially better off. So that sets up a difference as well. But let's talk about the support that the president is getting from his Republican base, because that speaks to the time component of this. A lot of Republicans say it's going to take at least a few months, if not a year or longer, before they can judge whether Donald Trump's trade policies are effective or not. So they're much more patient than independents and than Democrats are, who say that you can judge those right now. And what do those Republicans think will happen? Well, they believe that it's going to lead to more jobs. So look at the partisan breaks on that. 85% of Republicans saying ultimately it will lead to more manufacturing jobs, a little more doubt as you get through independents and Democrats. And that's partly why you see the partisan splits in all this.
All right, Anthony, thank you for that.